I'm Katie Kempner, and welcome to Perspectives at Advertising Week Europe. Right now, I'm very excited to be talking to Tash Whitmey, who is the CEO of Havas EHS.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Thank you.
So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your role?
My name's Tash Whitmey. I'm CEO of an agency called Havas EHS. We have been around for about 25 years. We blend two skill sets. The ability to gather, organise, manage, analyse customer data, and then critically the ability to use that data to build customer programmes that allow brands to talk one-to-one to their customers in the right channel at the right time.
And you were saying before that you had been in a number of different places, like 1 year at a time. Which is more of the norm, do you think, for people in this industry? Moving around a lot or staying where you are? What do you recommend?
If you're going to stay, it's important to give variety. So to have variety, and the reason I've stayed is my job has changed every 2 years within the organisation that I'm working in. But I think if you're young and coming into the industry, you should move around because there's so much to learn and understand. I mean, obviously for young people it's critical to give them training and help them with a career path, but there's a lot out there in the world of marketing now as it gets increasingly complicated with different digital channels. So I think moving around or staying, but if you're going to stay, make sure that you get some variety.
We were talking a little bit right before we started doing this. You had said that your form of balance is really blending everything together.
Total integration.
Yeah, and I had just read this article on the plane on the way over in the Harvard Business Review about different leadership styles, and some people who like to keep things separate, and some people say, this is my life, I'm integrating everything. And that's sort of your philosophy?
Yes, and I think you achieve what's right for you with a bit of trial and error. So I think you go through stages as you move up the ladder of going, well, now I've got to get some balance in my life, and I've got to, separate work from play. And, sometimes you can be with friends who give you pressure about being on your iPhone or whatever when you're out. But I think it's about what's right for you, and what's right for me is combining the whole thing. So I'm pretty much always look at my email first thing in the morning, look at my email last thing at night when I'm on holiday. But what I also do is, if I've got an hour spare in the day, I'll go to a yoga class or go swimming. So I think the right thing for me is about blending it all together so that I always know what's going on in the office, because it's better for me that way. And at the same time, if I've got a tiny bit of spare time, I don't necessarily take it at lunchtime. Mm-hmm. I will go when it's the right moment, without any guilt. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a critical part of, you've got to do what's right for you in a way that doesn't make you feel bad about yourself.
Well, let me ask you something. So the people that work for you that aren't the CEO of the company, if you're always there answering emails, do they need to then feel obligated? For me, I mean, if I get an email from the CEO, I feel pressure to answer it. So do you expect your people to answer it, or they have time, or is it a 24/7 world?
So I'm really honest with everybody I work with, and I explain who I am and the way that I work. So I will often do a lot of emails on a Sunday afternoon, but I say to everybody, don't feel obliged to answer these. You answer these at the right time for you. So one of my colleagues has an hour and a half commute on a Monday morning. So I'm like, line them up for the train journey. You don't need to interrupt your Sunday. Right. I think we've got to know each other, and they know that I don't expect them to answer. Mm-hmm. If we're in a pitch or, in an emergency client situation, then, it's a slightly different thing, particularly in an agency, because you always have those deadlines. But right. I don't think people feel overly pressurized. And I think we kind of all know each other well enough for it not to be a kind of a need for them to feel that.
Do you think that you put a lot of internal pressure on yourself to always know what's going on and be on top of things?
Yeah, but that's just me.
Right.
That's just me. I'm like that with my home life as well. I need to be on top of things. But that's, and I think that there's another important point there, which is if that is how I am. So if I try to make myself not be like that and go, well, I'll let that go and I don't, then that creates more pressure for me. Is
there a difference, I guess, here, being a woman CEO? Do you think of yourself that way, or do you think of yourself just as a CEO?
CEO. I don't think it's the same everywhere. I'm lucky that my boss is a woman. Mm-hmm. So that's I've grown up with that in the organisation. It probably is different, but I don't think of myself as a woman in a particularly male industry, and I don't behave any differently. Now, I might have gone through stages in my career progression when I've, said to myself, well, you need to be, more ballsy or more fierce or more organised. But, you go through that. You kind of ebb and flow with those phases until you reach the thing that's right for you.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation now about women in the workplace, the conversation has certainly been very much elevated since last advertising week where Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In had just come out. So do you think that the right conversations about women in the workplace are being had right now?
No, I don't actually. I think it is probably harder to get to the top. I'm not talking about my particular organisation, but you look externally, you talk to friends in other industries and in marketing, and I do think it's harder, and I think there is an element of inequality. The truth is, looking at organisations, how many women are on the board, how many women CEOs there are, in the top 100, it's a lot. It has been a lot more difficult. That said, it's an issue that people are now starting to talk about, like having young people on the board, like having women at the top, just making sure that those things now kind of step up the agenda in terms of how you design your company.
Yeah.
I think there's more conversation about it, which has got to be a good thing.
So I like to wrap all these up by just asking for a piece of advice. So, knowing everything that we've just talked about, women in the workplace and defining yourself as a CEO or CEO woman, what advice would you give for women starting out now or somewhere within their career?
Have confidence, find something you really love doing, and that makes you happy and that you're happy to do, and never ever look at yourself with anything other than complete positivity and confidence, and expect the best.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. It was great
Pleasure.
talking with you.
Thank you very much.